Welcome back, everybody. Part 3 of our Hornet Evo build. Since the last time I stopped without the electronics in it on part 2, I went ahead and put the electronics in because that's something that's pretty basically the same on everything. Oh, all it is you've got your servo saver, which it shows you have to drill a 3mm hole in this corner and put your ball end on with a screw. And then it's just normal servo ears, so I didn't really think that we were losing anything there. And then you just, arranging your electronics where you would like. That takes us through step 20, and we'll be starting off on step 21. This thing is shaping up. I like what they've done here. This has been a fun build so far. I like how they've mounted everything. I like the little things that they've done, like adding these little extra ears for support, the doubled up pieces. And it is kind of strange looking at that classic hopper chassis with this entire gearbox just kind of morphed onto the back of it. But we're going to give it a go, and I think it'll be all right. It actually kind of reminds me of the DTO2 in the way the rear layout is. But I'm going to start building, and we'll get through this. Here we are, step 21, getting the rear body mount installed. Nice, easy step. Before we get into the steering, looks a little bit more complex. Make sure when you're done you have your holes facing this way. I'm going to get out some power tools, see if I can speed this process along. And I'll finish torquing them in the rest of the way by hand because I don't want to strip them. A little more. There we go. Let me get the pieces out for step 22. I'll probably just go ahead and thread those together because they're literally just threading on ball ends. We've covered this before. I'll get all my links laid out, and then we'll get into 23 where we're actually starting to assemble the steering rack. Let's start getting all these steering pieces together. Looks like you have a ball end here. And while we're on subject of the steering, these links here, the short side will be your right hand normal thread. The long side will be your left hand threads. And when you put this piece together, it shows you having a gap there. You don't even have to worry about that. Crank it in as far as it'll go, and it's still just a little tiny bit longer than the diagram. So, not 100% sure why that is, but that's as far in as they go. That one's set. Now the one in the middle is a little bit different. It takes a hex. Kit has not been bad to build so far. I am enjoying it. I haven't built a kit in a while either, so this is nice. Let's see, it looks like we have a bearing. The larger bearing goes in the top. I possibly grabbed the wrong size. That's the one that should. Oh, okay. I see what I'm doing. I'm grabbing the wrong daggone thing. It's a small bearing here. And then large bearing on each side of these. Well, larger of the small bearings in the kit. I like that they've included some bearings in this kit. Now they're not a sealed bearing, but at least they're a bearing. Better than we had before. And they kind of took an interesting approach on how to deal with a bearing. They've just decided to use a flathead screw with that beveled end, because it will ride on the inside of the bearing race. Without hindering the movement of the bearing. I snug down nice and tight, and I mean, it works. A lot of times you'll see, got a step down washer. It starts out flat and then has a sleeve that goes down through there, a crushed sleeve, but this seems to work just fine. Buddy, it started. Swinging in the wind, good to go. It shows I gotta have this one goes in the center. And short end to the inside on this side. And short end to the outside on this side. And there we go. I wasn't too hateful. There's my little mistake with the bearings. I'm going to move up here and get started on 24, which is our front A-arms. This is the spot that I have been looking forward to because I was wondering how that was going to go. Finally working our way to the section with the A-arms. That one's for my grease. There we go. This one's for my thread locker. Put a little bit down on this tube. Let that down. Looks like we're going to end up going right through these holes here. Another one. Interesting little layout. A little grease on our axle pins. Or A-arm pins. Everything laid out right. Sometimes it's just better to double check. One of the guys I work once told me If you don't have time to do it the right way, you surely don't have time to do it twice. Always just thought that was a pretty interesting saying. Buddy. There we go. Takes a little wiggling because of the way those kind of step in on one side and out the other, but not too horrible once you get them lined up. And there we go. Let's get this car back up on the table and do part 25. Let's have a look. Like we need to set this in just like this. Okay. We need to attach to our steering link first. And I'm going to grab my little channel locks, if I can get in on those. Come on, buddy, get lined up. There we go. Once got it lined up, there's no problem, went right into place like it should. Oh, then it appears that this will sit down like so. And those should set through the bearings. And they did. And then I'll just, like, it pops back down in there. Huh. Now that is a interesting little setup. I suppose if it works. I was wondering what they're going to do to add some strength to this hollow section. Yeah, I can feel that moving. That is kind of a compact little setup, but they got it all in there. That's pretty cool. Now step 26 down here, just assembling another rod arm. I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick, another linkage. Time to get these hubs assembled. Let's see. Lay this piece over here. Have a look at that one. So I'm going to want it to set this way. I think it's one of the ball ends. There we go. What is our next step? I'm going to set an axle pin in here. Hopefully we can get everything to line up properly. Looks looks like it's identical on either side. Just gonna lay that down for a second. Grease the pin, and I am gonna grease this because it wants to slide around in there. I'm just gonna add a little grease just to kind of help keep it in place. That'll hopefully hold that so it doesn't slide out on us. Well, I think we got it. Good. That is a lot of alignment to do right there. A lot of different parts working against you. That's a tight one right there. Like we're working pretty good. Oh, let's put a screw through here. Another one of the little ball ends. Oh, wrong brush. Don't want to put the grease brush in the thread locker. That wouldn't be too good. Kind of work it against each other at that point. Not too bad. Let's see. It wants us to put the rod arms we built earlier with the turnbuckle side adjuster facing in. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull this over now. We'll put this side on and I'll do the other side off camera. Oh, it looks like this guy's going to sit down in here. I'll take one of these. That's right. I like the newer style softer plastic they've used in the arms. Let's see. We have one turnbuckle that has to go here for our steering. Get this slid back into camera view. And the other one goes here for our upper link. And look at that. That's a Tamiya Hornet hopper design with a decent front suspension. Okay, I'm going to get the other side together and we'll press on. Time to move on to the shocks. So I've already built 3 of the shocks. I built the 2 short ones and one of the long ones. And I've already installed one side of them on there. So we get our E-clip here. I snapped that on already. Then we're going to put our little piston for the inside of our shock. And that's going to get another E-clip if I can get that thing settled in place pretty decently. Hopefully. Funny thing about stuff like this, it'll give me no problem if I do it off camera, but the moment that camera comes on, there we go. I like to use the bent tip needle noses. And I usually use the Team Associated green slime, but unfortunately it's been so long my bottle dried up. I'm just going to use regular grease. Put a little bit of that, put the first O-ring in, get the second O-ring in. Cap on, looks pretty good. That all started. I use my Mark Bryan trick and try to trickle some of this oil in underneath. That way you do not have to wait for all the air bubbles to come up if you don't cause them. Even if you keep the flow steady and everything at the right angle, it goes right in. Doing it this way, you do get a little bit of oil overflow, but perfectly acceptable. No air bubbles coming up out of there. I'm going to cap that off just a tiny bit. Put a little cap on there. I'm going to try to wipe up a little bit off of this threads for now before I give the whole thing a wipe down. All pretty good. Add that little guy. These screw on pretty decently, actually. I know they recommend you wiping in cloth, but I stay down here because that's going to come down anyway, and there's still quite a bit of thread. I always just go down right by the thread. Give them a good tightening. And because that part of the shock's never going to go up in the shock body. Bring on spring retainer. And we're going to put one of these here. There you go. Let's get these things on the buggy. For the rear, it's just a simple snap-on. It does take a good bit of pressure, which is good because you don't want them flying off on you. There we go. We have rear suspension. And on to the front shock. A little bit of grease. Oh, that was the sound of the battery charger going off. We're ready to go whenever I get finished. The new plastic's nice though. As I've stated before, I really like it. It's much better than the old ABS stuff on the outer parts especially. Then I'm going to add a little bit of grease on this just to hold it in place. Looks pretty good. And we get a flange nut on that side. That charger really wants me to get that battery off it. There we go. Front suspension. We are nearing the end. The bumper just mounts on with 3 screws there, which I will put on off camera. And when you put your battery cover on, you get this little tab here, and it goes over, and you put your key through that, and that's actually going to keep that door from popping off. That's a definite upgrade. And I've already assembled the wheels and tires. I'm going to put the outer bearings on, and we're going to flip this thing over and power it up. Well, here we are at the end of the road of this magnificent buggy build. Let's give a little plop test. Still a little heavy on that rear end. I did add some extra spacers there. The front seems to be handling pretty good, but that back still is slapping a bit. Which this thing ain't going to see any super jumps anyway. But I think probably have to do a little more tuning, and in the future I might actually go with a little bit longer shocks. The battery I found very tight to fit into place. I really had to struggle to get that in there, and that's what you would consider a Tamiya size battery. They are lipos, but they're in the same casing and size as a nickel metal, and I found that one very tough. I'll probably be switching out to a little bit smaller battery after this initial run, but I wanted to run it with that in there. I got it in there, but it took some moving stuff around and pushing here and there, but it finally went where it was supposed to. One of the things I thought is pretty interesting about the stuff included in this build is they give you these little barrel of hex adapters, and these will allow you to, on the rear end, to use a more positive offset tire, and that way, you know, you've got your hex out here, you're not normally able to run it because it'll hit your shocks. This will give you a little adapter so you're able to do that, which is kind of a nice thing to have included in the kit. And for the body. And here we are. This is actually one of my spare Hornet bodies that I peeled all of the graphics off of and put the new graphics on. I think it turned out pretty good. The only thing is, I do not know where I put the spoiler. I have ransacked my RC room and I cannot find it. That's alright. It's not detrimental to running, and honestly, it don't look too bad without it. I'm going to pop the top off it, and heck, I don't even have to pop the top off of it. Let me turn the radio on. I think we can reach right through the window and get to the on switch. Yep, put it in the right spot. There we go. So there's not a super amount of steering, but it should work. That sounds very smooth. Well, there we go. That is my completed Hornet build. I've saved my clear body because I'm going to do a custom paint job with it. Just haven't quite got on board with what I'm doing yet. A lot of ideas. But here we go. Complete. Build complete. I think it turned out pretty great. I'm pretty excited about all the new additions. I think it's a pretty good kit, and honestly, I don't think the cost is that bad. I've heard a lot of comments on I'm not going to pay that much for a Hornet, but it's not a Hornet anymore. And you get bearings, and you get oil shocks, and you have upgraded plastic pieces. It's just a nice kit to build too, and for $200, $180 is what it was over here. It's not bad. I pay $200 for Tamiya kits all the time, so to me it's just like buying a normal Tamiya kit. Now, why the Hornet and Hopper series is a bit cheaper, it's no longer a hopper. Hoppers don't land like that. Can't pick up one wheel on a hopper and have the other 3 on the ground. Not that easily, at least. It's a completely, yeah, they share the chassis, they share the body, and you know, other than that, they've really redesigned everything else. So in my opinion, and take that for what it's worth, I think it's a decent for the cost, and we're going to take it out and drive it and see how it drives. So please join me on the drive video, and thank you for hanging out with me throughout all these. I will definitely put this in the playlist, and I will also throw the first drive video in the playlist as soon as I get that done, which is probably in about 20 minutes from now, and then whenever I get the video uploaded to you guys. Have a great one. Catch you on the next one.